So what does it mean to be a leader in the digital era? And I mean a leader in all aspects of our lives, at work, in our communities, and in our homes. This is an urgent issue. It's not a light question. That's because research from Gallup shows that, amazingly, worldwide, only 13% of people are engaged in their work. And despite companies' best efforts to address this problem, that number has barely budged over the past decade. This is also an issue in our homes. This is what engagement looks like in my household. My teenagers are totally engaged with their devices, their worlds, their friends, but not with me. As the parent, I am a distraction, an annoyance, when I try to get them to do the things that I want them to do. If you're not a parent yourself, you likely remember what it was like to be a teenager and the annoyance that you felt when your parents tried to tell you how to drive or dress or date. But at some point, parents have to trust their teenagers. People who successfully parent their teenagers into adulthood eventually say to them, I know you can do this now on your own. I think it's time for us to learn how to do this at work as well. Now, when we think about hierarchies, many of them exist in organizations today. Well, hierarchies were created at the dawn of the Industrial Revolution to create efficiency and scale. Hierarchies work great if you manufacture widgets where the information and the expertise you need to make decisions reside only at the top. But in our modern, digitally connected world, efficiency pales against the need for innovation, for change, and for speed. The people who have to make decisions and choices around all of these changes reside at the edges and at the bottom of the organization. Leaders today have to trust that those employees will use good judgment when they have to make decisions that in the past would have been sent up the ladder for somebody else to decide. In order for those employees to do this, they have to be able to have two-way, non-hierarchical conversations throughout the organization. That's so they can gather the information needed to make those decisions and to take action. This is not some future utopian world. This is one that exists today. One example of this is the restaurant chain, the Red Robin. They have a very digital savvy employee base. 87% of them are millennials. They recently introduced a new menu item called the Pig Out Style Burger. And one of the things they did was those restaurant servers went out and gathered customer feedback. They asked those people, what did you think of this? And they posted that feedback on the company's internal social network. And it wasn't all good. Executives quickly realized that they had to make a change, and they tapped those employees for suggestions on what to do. The result, employee suggestions went to the test kitchens at headquarters and then back into the field again in less than 30 days. That's compared to 6 to 12 months it would normally have taken. What Red Robin realized was that employee engagement wasn't about employees talking with each other. It was really about them being heard and that their voices making a difference. But there's a big problem. Managers who sit between those executives and the front lines absolutely abhor this new openness. That's because those executives are going around them to talk to their direct reports, and they fight this change tooth and nail because they feel they're losing control. Now, those middle managers can be a big obstacle to change, but they're also a crucial part of the solution. I've done a lot of thinking and researching around what we can do to address this problem, and I've identified 3 things that we can do. The first is that we have to create a culture of sharing. Now, in hierarchies, layers are designed to filter information up and to push information down. We were taught that to be successful, we had to hoard information. But in a networked organization, just the opposite is true. Managers become facilitators. They accelerate the speed and spread of information throughout the organization. One of the best examples I've ever seen of this was on the US Navy aircraft carrier, the USS Nimitz. In a radical act of transparency, they invited 16 bloggers to spend 24 hours on board. I was fortunate enough to be one of those bloggers. The captain, once we were on board, encouraged us to talk to anybody about anything at any time. He knew that he couldn't control what his sailors would say to any of us, but he had confidence that they knew what to share and what to keep private. That's because they had a culture of sharing in place. They practiced this every single day because they knew that their lives and their missions depended on the ability for anybody to speak up at the right time. How many of you would feel comfortable allowing an outsider to come into your organization and walk around unescorted for even 1 hour? If you had a strong culture of sharing in place, you would feel confident and comfortable that this would be fine. The second thing that organizations can do is to practice followership. If you think about it, the size and quality of your network today determines how much power and influence you have, not your title. Now, one of the key things that you can see is that when people share with each other, they develop this relationship. One manager that I know posted internal video updates about a project that she was working on. She used those updates to engage people throughout the organization. What she was doing was actively building relationships and a network of followers. When it came time to implement that project, she tapped her followers for volunteers, people who would then champion that project and the implementation in their own departments. Now, if middle managers were encouraged to develop their own followership, then if their titles were to change or even disappear, they would nonetheless retain that power, the influence, and the effectiveness. But how do you actually do this? How do you actually go about and create that? Well, I think one of the key things is to think about the third thing, which is how do you use networks to create meaningful decisions? Now, employees and managers are smart. They are not going to engage unless they know that their engagement is going to result in the organization moving forward and also themselves. But how do you get them to engage in the first place? The key is to get decision makers involved. One CEO who I know did this and made this shift by asking employees throughout the organization to make suggestions around what processes and which technologies the company should eliminate. And they did this on the company's internal collaboration platform. Now, with over 800 suggestions submitted, the CEO then started to prioritize which ones to cut, again with those inputs from employees. Well, when the middle managers and the executives heard that this was happening, they started to get involved too as well. This was the turning point, the place where the managers realized that those networks were being used to get real work done. Using networks to make critical decisions is the only way that we can gain traction. I've just described 3 ways that we can lead in the digital era, but changing organizations with sharing, followership, and networking does not happen overnight. What these 3 things have in common is that they require us to give up the traditional notion that power and influence comes from being in control. This is not an easy idea to let go of. But just like when we were teens, and our parents had to let go in order for us to grow, we need to empower and engage our employees, let go and trust that they will do the right thing. This is the only way that we, as leaders, are going to be able to harness their passion, their energy, and their creativity. Thank you very much.